Neil Warnock at Delap. It's something that shouldn't have worked on paper.
I remember seeing not too long ago when Paddy Kenny got married, Warnock sent him a video message to say congratulations, and I wouldn't expect anything less. In fact, I'm disappointed he wasn't best man.
Sheffield United still to get going properly, but performing nice and well.
Onel Akmadozovic has looked like a really, really good signing. He's been absolutely superb so far. Justin's laughing because I pronounced his name completely different every time I say it.
I think they could be playoff contenders.
They're not playoff contenders for me. I'd say there's at least 12 teams who are better than Preston. If Jakobsen goes, then they are pretty bullied. He's highly rated and expected to go on to big things. I'm really, really excited to see how he does.
But is he the answer to Stoke's problems? I don't think he is. I think the squad is massively imbalanced.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Stopwatch. It's the Championship show with a little twist. It's 5 topics, a 2-minute timer, and 2 hosts with Ryan and Justin from the Second Tier podcast. Let's get right into it. Justin, who's in the healthiest position after game week 4?
I'm going to go with Sheffield United, and the key reason is they've still got some key players to come back into the team. You look at Ryan Brewster, who's just starting to get back up to match fitness and sharpness. Billy Sharp, to mention sharpness, Billy Sharp still got to come into the team. Tommy Doyle as well, and obviously James McAtee's just made his debut this week as well. So there's still players to come back in, and better yet, they're creating chances, but they're not conceding many either. They're in a really healthy position. I know they lost on the opening day to Watford, but it was still a half decent performance. But for me, Sheffield United still to get going properly, but performing nice and well.
Yeah, I really like what I've seen from Sheffield United so far. Onel Akmadozovic has looked like a really, really good signing. He's been absolutely superb so far. Justin's laughing because I pronounced his name completely different every time I say it. But yeah, Ilman Ndiaye's looked really sharp too. There's just a lot to like about how Paul Heckingbottom's side have got on so far, isn't there, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. And tactically, they're looking really well. You've got Jaden Bogle as well to come back in at right wing back, and they still need to find a nice balance on that left-hand side. So they're not at their best, as I say, but they're still getting there, which is a really massive positive for them.
Absolutely. The healthiest position for me has got to be Hull City out of all the teams in the Championship so far. Of course, still unbeaten. They sit second in the Championship, just a point off the top, having won 2 and drawn 2 so far. Hull were always a bit of an unknown heading into this season. Whether they'll be able to maintain their good form over a prolonged period, I'm not too sure. But I've really liked what I've seen so far. Jean-Michel Seri, obviously a fantastic buy. Ozan Tufan has been superb. He's been great. Oscar Estupinan has looked really good since coming in now so far as well. And I think that was the main question mark about Hull. They brought in all these big names from abroad who nobody really knew how they'd get on. They've all got on really well so far, haven't they? So it's going to be an interesting last couple of weeks of the transfer window for them, whether they bring in any more players. Of course, considering what we've seen so far, it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case, but also keeping hold of some key players they've already got, the likes of Jacob Greaves, for example, who's been linked with a move to Middlesbrough. But I've liked what I've seen on the pitch so far. The new signings are bedding in really well. And that's all you can really ask for from a Hull perspective, isn't it? Justin, what's next topic?
The prophecy, the Delap prophecy is potentially returning to Stoke, but would that answer their problems?
It's tricky because I think one issue I've noticed so far with Stoke is the form of Dwight Gale. Now, it's only 4 games in. We won't get too carried away so far, but he's not been as good as I would have thought so far. He's not really had an impact in any of the games that he's featured in so far. So whether he comes in for him, I'm assuming so, because I think Jacob Brown's the kind of striker who complements his strike partner. And I could see Liam Delap coming in with him and providing competition for Dwight Gale and maybe even being ahead of him in the pecking order. So I think it would answer plenty of Stoke's problems. I mean, he's a fantastic player. He's been linked with Premier League teams this summer. Not just on loan, but permanent buyers as well. So he's a really, really talented boy from what we've been told. He's highly rated and expected to go on to big things. I'm really, really excited to see how he does in a Stoke shirt because, I mean, as you say, it's the prophecy returning to the Bet365 stadium, isn't it, Justin? And he could be fantastic. He really, really could, couldn't he?
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's a multifaceted number 9. He's got pace. He can finish. He's a physical player as well. Just needs experience. But is he the answer to Stoke's problems? I don't think he is. I think the squad is massively imbalanced. You look at the wing-back situation, the depth there isn't great. And if If Michael O'Neill's going to deploy a 3-5-2, obviously you've got the two forwards with Delap and whoever plays with him. But it's just a supply that troubles me a little bit. I think that's something that needs addressing rather than another forward, because I think Tyrese Campbell, Jacob Brown, Dwight Gale is a good selection of forwards at championship level. Don't think you needed to add Delap in. So I would have concentrated the budget elsewhere, but that's not the case. But Delap improves any side, doesn't he? He's a good player.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. I don't think Delap solves their problems per se, but without a doubt, it's a brilliant signing. We can say that much. Just a minute. Next topic is about Preston North End. Are they playoff candidates? So far, they're the only team in the Championship not to concede a goal. Only the second time in Championship history a team has gone 4 games without conceding a goal at the start of the season. Having said that, they've only scored 1 goal, and that was that Brad Potts worldie against Luton the other day. So are they playoff candidates for you?
They could be. And I know it's very early on, but defensively, they've looked very, very good. The clean sheets tells you that. And if you go back to 05-06, the best defensive team in the Championship was Preston under Billy Davis. Yulmueni, Matt Hill, Chris Lucchetti maybe might have passed him by, but nonetheless, a very good defense. And good playoff potential teams are built on solid foundations, and that's what Ryan Lowe has done. It's just scoring goals, but they are creating chances. So that's a really healthy blend. It's just whether or not they can consistently score goals. And obviously, with the rumours surrounding Jakobsen at the moment, they need a forward with Jakobsen there. If they sell him, they need 2 forwards. So that might be a bit problematic. But I think they could be playoff contenders.
They're not playoff contenders for me. I'd say there's at least 12 teams who are better than Preston, quite frankly. So it would take something extraordinary for them to actually get in there. The goal scoring front is a massive concern in itself. They haven't replaced Cameron Archer for a start, have they?
Mm-hmm.
And he was so important to them in the second half of last season. They brought in Troy Parrott, who I rate that as a signing, but I don't expect him to have the same impact as Archer. And Callum Robinson's been linked with a move back, but I'm not sure if that's happening anymore. So they're lacking a lot going forwards, and that's not just because they've only scored 1 goal so far. If Jakobsen goes, then they are pretty buggered, to be honest, going forwards. So that's a concern for me. Defensively, you can't fault them. They've been fantastic so far. I mean, not conceding a goal, that's great. I don't know, do rate Ryan Lowe as a manager, but I think it's more of a long-term thing as opposed to them causing any problems for teams challenging for the playoffs this season, unfortunately. Justin, what's the next topic?
Which players underwhelmed so far, or which player are we yet to see the best of?
That's a tricky one, I think, Justin. I think Daryl DK is the first one who comes to mind, but I suppose it's not really, he can't really count because he's been injured straight off the block. I was expecting him to be one of the contenders for top goal scorer this season, but he's got injured straight away. So has he really underwhelmed? No, because he's not really been on the pitch. So can you really include him as an option? I'm not really too sure, to be honest, Justin. I think someone like Rashitska at Norwich is someone who I'd look at and think when he came to the Premier League, many people were tipping him to kind of fill that Emi Buendia void that they lost. Didn't really do it in the Premier League, and maybe him taking a step down to the Championship, he'd have improved. But no, he's been really, really poor so far. Not someone you'd have thought Norwich has spent millions of pounds on only last summer. So yeah, he's someone I thought may relish dropping down to the Championship, but so far he's been really, really poor, and he's already lost his place in the team and been replaced by Daniel Sonani. And considering Sonani's performance in midweek, I'd be surprised if he gets back into the team anytime soon. Who are you thinking, Justin?
Well, it's quite easy to focus on goal scorers. I don't think we've seen the best of Marcus Forss yet in a Borough shirt, but he is quite new, so we've got to give him time to bed in. Joel Pirro has disappointed me a little bit. I don't think we've seen the Pirro that we saw last season. Is his head turned? Maybe the transfer window being closed might help him improve. But one player I'll that's very rude. One player I'll mention is Timu Pukki. Again, on that Norwich factor, the fact that they have struggled to convert chances, and they have created a shed load of chances, just that they've struggled to convert them. And Timu Pukki has been guilty of that. His movement hasn't been as liquid as it normally has been. His partnership with Buendia really did help him thrive in that. But yeah, Pukki is one that has disappointed me a little bit. And as you mentioned, with Rashiksa being dropped, Pukki was injured in midweek. Sargent comes in, scores. So yeah, who knows what happens at the weekend? But it does raise some questions about whether he's fit enough, or just has he underwhelmed essentially.
I don't think he's been helped by the lack of service. I'll say that because he's been very isolated so far in Norwich's first 3 games that he played in. And when you're Teemu Pukki, you rely a lot on that service, don't you? He's not the kind of striker who creates chances by himself. So I think I'd let him off in that respect, but considering many people would have probably had a little punt on him being top goal scorer this season, it's not been a good start in that respect, I suppose, has it? Finally, Justin, it's second tier retro time. What is the unlikeliest championship bromance and or partnership that we've ever seen in the second tier?
Yeah, it's difficult to really think back, but the one that immediately springs to mind is Warnock to Rapt. Neil Warnock, Adel to Rapt. It's something that shouldn't have worked on paper. Rapt being a man of his own will, shall we say, does what he wants. And Neil Warnock made and capped him and got one of the best individual seasons, or the best individual season out of a player in Championship history, while winning the league at the same time. As I say, he's not a Neil Warnock player either. You go back through Neil Warnock teams. Is there a mercurial talent in there that has the ability that Trapp has? No, there isn't. But that was a one-off, and it worked a treat. And we're better for it. We're better for experiencing it. We're all better human beings for seeing that season with Adel Trapp and Neil Warnock.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can dispute that. The fact that this guy from, lad from Yorkshire managed to get the best out of a Moroccan, a bit of a sulky Moroccan at that, and turn him into the player that he was. I mean, it was probably arguably the individual best season we've ever seen from a player into it in the Championship, and it's all because Neil Warnock took the leash off him and managed to get the best out of him. Sticking with the Warnock theme, Warnock and Paddy Kenny. I think you only have to go to Mr. Kenny himself to talk about some of the stories that he's had from Neil Warnock in his time there. But it's the bromance that is the ultimate bromance, really, isn't it? The fact that we all know wherever Warnock went, Paddy Kenny was not far behind, really, was he? And it's quite funny because when Paddy Kenny was just brought in, he was only brought in as a number 2, wasn't he? He came in from Bury, I think it was. And from that point, he got installed as the number 1. They had a few fallings out over time. I don't think either party would deny that, but it's become what it has. And I remember seeing not too long ago when Paddy Kenny got married, Warnock sent him a video message to say congratulations, and I won't expect anything less. In fact, I'm disappointed he wasn't best man at his wedding, quite frankly. But there you go. This has been another episode of the Stopwatch. This has been episode 3 of the season so far, I think, Justin.
Yeah, we're 3.
Rattling through them as we go. So we'll be back again next week for more Stopwatch content. Make sure you subscribe and comment on anything that we've spoken about here on the show today. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Second Tier Pod. I'm Ryan Dilks. That's Justin Peach 27 over there, and we'll be back again very soon.